I say anymore? Fentanyl is a crisis here in America, and King of the Casuals has continued to do this podcast as it was started by none other than Jack McCarthy, who was taken from us by drug-induced homicide, fentanyl poisoning, and so we have set out to do our best to put an end to it through fentanylfathers.org and continuing to spread the word. With that, let's get into the co-main and main event and bring in two of the most famous people I know, Nate and Jake from the West Coast. There we go. How about that?
That's not saying a lot, man.
In my mind. It's in my mind.
Oh, well, thank you.
So let's get straight into it. We've got two great fights to talk about on this card. You are famous.
Oh.
I just want to put a picture up right now just to piss off Jake. So, and then, of course, you have, as Kobe Covington calls him, Street Judas on the right there.
I'm going to go last. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Okay. All right.
About the fight, about who you think's going to win, about Masvidal. Let me hear what you guys have to say, because I think you already know what I have to say, but I want to have counterpoints to everything that you guys say about it.
So I'll go first. So I think this fight Burns is probably going to get a submission. I think he'll take him down in maybe second, third round. He'll submit him. But Jorge is a crafty vet. He has some very interesting striking, and he has a great team behind him. So there's always the chance that he catches him. Maybe he has some plan set up that they're hoping for, and he's able to. They've seen something in Burns's game that allows him to slip in a big shot and maybe get a knockout. But I'm going to go with Burns. Burns is really, really good, and I think he gets him to the ground and chokes him out.
Wow. All right. So, in thinking about George Masvidal's rise to stardom, it starts with London when he switched stance and sort of pulled a really cool move. It was almost like a Superman punch, but I believe he was fighting left-handed and then switched to right, or one way or the other. But it's this move where it's like he covers a lot of distance in a short amount of time with his feet and just put Till to sleep. Then, of course, his next fight was the shortest fight in MMA history, where I thought he actually killed Ben Askren.
He may have died. They may have had to resuscitate him.
Yeah, and then followed by the Nate Diaz BMF belt. So those three fights in a row are what put Masvidal from a journeyman status to then becoming your second or third highest, pay-per-view star, biggest pay-per-view star besides Nate and Conor, I believe. So he's put his time in, but I think he's put too much time in. And as a fighter, and I after seeing him get finished by Usman and did Kobe finish him, or was that just a decision? It was 50-45. But Usman knocked him into Mars. I don't know if he'll ever be the same. And so when I look at Burns, he's a tough motherfucker, and he's got a very, very good striking game, and then maybe the best grappling jiu-jitsu game in the UFC.
World champion.
Yeah.
So world champion.
I don't know how Masvidal is able to combat all of that, because he could easily knock out Masvidal, let alone if he gets him down, it's trouble. Now, Masvidal is pretty good, though, at not getting submitted. I don't believe maybe he's submitted once. He's been knocked out once. I think he's been submitted one time. So, that's a tough one, because Masvidal's no joke on the ground. He's not like a jiu-jitsu extraordinary, but he's pretty good defending it. He's crafty, as you said. But I agree. I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns, and I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns by knockout, actually. I think he finishes him on the feet. So with that, we'll hand it over to Jake King Tech.
All right. So I'm gonna do the old managerial style of build them up, break them down, build them back up here. Okay.
Do it
with Masvidal. Be a little nicer, but say what I mean. So first off, Masvidal has done a great job of marketing himself. He's been able to pick the fights what are those 3 wins that he won to kind of launch him into the stratosphere and be able to really promote himself in the way that he has, which again is very good. He beat Darren Till, who, as we've seen now, has had to take himself out of the UFC just to figure out what the hell he's doing, right? So not that impressive of a win. the Ben Askren win, however crazy and probably one of the most amazing knockouts we've ever seen in the UFC, who did he knock out?
Ben Askren.
What did Ben Askren do in the UFC? I'm not
Nothing.
talking about outside of the UFC. I'm talking about in the UFC. He
Robbie Lawler.
beat Robbie Lawler,
Right.
and then was literally retired by Jorge Masvidal in 5 seconds.
And then he got punched in the face by Jake Paul wants to take a paycheck.
Right. So, okay, great. I mean, it was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. And it was planned. So it's not luck. He planned it.
Yeah.
And then the next fight he fights Nate Diaz, Nate Diaz is another guy who has done an amazing job of marketing himself. And even with Nate Diaz, he doesn't even try to market himself. He just is who he is. And he gets a following. And I have no ill will against Nate Diaz. But in my mind, he's a journeyman fighter, and he always has been. Getting back to Masvidal, he hasn't beaten anybody who, in my mind, gets him to the level of fighters that he's fighting with and he's calling out. Yeah. Like Gilbert Burns, in my mind, is better than Masvidal in every way. And that's saying something, considering Burns, until 2 years ago, his striking game was nothing to write home about. He had a great ground game, wrestling game, defensive takedown game, but his striking was pretty ugly. And in the past 2 years, he's brought his striking game to a championship level, 100%. So I think Burns could easily finish this fight if he comes out, sets up a takedown, gets into the ground, and he out-jiu-jitsus Masvidal 10 out of 10 times. And he's going to submit Masvidal.
Yeah,
that's
easy.
I see it. Masvidal is pumped up so much. He's done nothing when it comes to the top tier fighters. Whenever he's gotten to fight the top tier, he's shit the bed, and there's a reason, because he should be fighting in backyards and fucking
pulled an Amber Heard and shit the bed.
BFE, Florida somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, and he's good at taking cheap shots outside of restaurants.
He's a bum.
Okay. I mean, I can see all that. Obviously, I think Nate and I agree. Maybe not to the extent of your. I mean, you feel about Masvidal like how I feel about Islam Makhachev. All right, so here we have the last fight, and then here's yesterday's weigh-ins. I don't know what's up with the dog collar.
It's not a dog collar; it's his traditional necklace.
He called it a dog collar.
Izzy said he's a dog. He's coming.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
I thought you were talking about Pereira.
No, Pereira's wearing no. Pereira's in a tribe. Dean actually knows this tribe of people. They do a lot of ayahuasca and have shamans and stuff. And so Pereira's apparently he's a very, very grounded, enlightened individual spiritually, and physically a killer. This is a guy I think who could fight at heavyweight and do pretty well. Now,
I think he eventually does.
Yeah. Having said all that, he is fighting a guy that, to me, might be the best striker in the UFC, and a guy who looks jacked. No one said anything about this, but at the weigh-ins, he looks way more jacked than he has. That's just 5 months he's done that in.
He's been training, man, hard.
Yeah, so he looks ready to go, and is interestingly still the odds favorite, which makes no sense.
It doesn't, especially since he's lost 3 times to him.
Maybe what they're doing, though, the thinking is the numbers are on his side. Eventually, Adesanya can win this fight. They fight enough times.
Or they're only looking at the one fight in the UFC and going, okay, look, Adesanya was having a decent fight before he got caught, right?
I had him four rounds to nil at going into the 5th round.
I would say it was 3. I would have given him 3.
But he was handedly winning the fight until he wasn't.
And he had Pereira wobbled at one point. He hurt
first round.
Yeah,
hit him hard.
So he can hurt him. We've seen that. So Adesanya's just got to do a better job of not allowing him to tee off with some of his power shots. He does such a good job with his foot movement and with his head movement, and I think he kind of slowed that down, and that's why he was able to get caught the way he did, is because he slowed that head movement. And he's just so good at rolling with a punch. You didn't see that in that round, and I think that's why I got caught. But this is. I'm excited to watch the fight again. Yeah, I'm excited to watch the fight again. I would watch this fight a bunch of times because you really don't know.
They're technicians. They're both technicians, and anything can happen. They both got power.
It's one of those fights where I don't have a guy. I'm not rooting for somebody. I just want to see a good fight. Like I like Pereira a lot, and I've always liked Izzy. Sometimes he's slightly corny in his marketing. It's like right on the edge of, is that cool or is that kind of dorky? I'm not sure.
Well, maybe Nate will attest to this. I've never been a big Izzy fan. And
we've had you on here. You've said that here.
I love him. He's my boy. That guy's a fucking beast. He's in the Matrix. Like, he's so good.
When he lost to Jan, that's when I actually started to like him, because the way he handled that, the way he came back, the way he was training, and he was like, you know what? I went up, I tried, I did my thing, and it didn't work. I'm going to come back and I'm going to keep killing everybody else in this division. And
you know what? That's actually a really amazing point too, right? And I think you actually just swayed my opinion on who's going to win this. If this would have been Izzy's first loss in the UFC, I think it may have had a different effect. But with him losing to Jan and
another guy that's big.
Yeah, and having that championship mentality still, I think I'm going to go with Izzy on this. I think Izzy will get this done. It's either probably going to be a 5-round decision or a knockout. But like everyone's saying, this is a very close fight. They've fought a bunch of times. Pereira could fucking knock him out at any point. You never know.
Pereira's got a camp right now that has him dialed in on all fronts. He looks good. But Izzy, like Jamie said, he looked jacked. He looked like he has just been working. And Izzy, again, he got caught. If he takes away that ability for Pereira to just tee off on him like he did, throw those punches, and just, if he can do that, he wins this fight. And I think that's where I think Izzy wins this fight either by knockout or, I know this is crazy, he's either going to catch him or it's going to go to a decision. But I think Izzy takes the win on this one.
Oh, wow. I'll go next, and then we'll leave Nate. Since he could pronounce both these guys' names, he earned his right to go last here. I'm going to go with the odds, not the odds on the fight, but the numbers game. They fought 3 times, twice in kickboxing, which is basically what they're going to do in a cage, unless Adesanya thinks he can wrestle more. But I think he had a hard time taking him down, and that takes a lot of energy. So I don't see that happening more than once. Maybe just to, put it in the guy's head. I do think it's going to be a decision by Adesanya, close fight, and he will this time not get hit. It's hard to hit him unless he's can't move. I think he starts off early trying to knock out Pereira and then goes to the defensive game. But I have Adesanya winning, like 48-47 on basically.
But with what you just said, I think that Israel, and it made me think about, like, a lot of times with these champions, they're unstoppable until they get stopped. And then after that, they struggle because they lost whatever mental thing is there. And I think the Jan fight will come into effect here in that he's lost recently and was able to come back from that. And he knows that he had that fight won if he could have just kept his shit together. So I think that he's been focusing a lot on that. And he either does something slick and catches him, or like Jamie said, I truly do think Izzy has a great ability to take this, all 5 rounds and just squeeze out a victory.
So there it is. UFC 287 fight predictions for the main card, co-main and main, and that's Nate. Let's go Woodring and Jake. King Thick Woodring, and I am Sir James, the King Casual, on behalf of Jackie Mack forever.
Sir James of Elderlyville.
Cause I'm king of the casuals, the casual king.
Keep your fucking fingers in. What is this shit? I mean, it's always this shit.
The casuals, the casual king. Cause I'm nobody bringing you the casual thing. The king of the casual.